Welcome back, Illini fans. It's time for another edition of Illini Sports Night. Tonight, we'll be updating you on Illinois baseball and wrestling, and later, Mariah Guzman does an interview with Karen Howell.
But first, we have headlines. Starting with Illinois' 62-56 upset over number 9 Penn State Tuesday night. Ayo
Dosunmu was back and returned to the lineup after missing just one game following his knee injury last week. Dosunmu scored 24 points in his return.
Kofi Coburn also contributed with 14 points and his own 7 rebounds. And the Illini will look to be back in the rankings next week. Honestly, let's start with the fact that Ayo Dosunmu came back. I did not expect him at all. The leg injury looked way worse than it ended up being, but man, he dominated the game.
Yeah, Ayo Dosunmu's his return was definitely a surprise for all of us. I know I was shocked when I saw it. They said he was good for warm-ups, and he was the catalyst. He was the only reason Illinois wins that game.
Yeah.
I thought Brad did a great job just handling the clock, especially at the end of the first half. But just a lot of great takeaways. It's probably his best coach game as an Illini, in my opinion.
Yeah, we just talked about it. Kofi Coburn obviously had a big game, and it was the Ayo and Kofi show. Mm-hmm. The supporting cast wasn't as great as maybe we expected them, except, of course, Alan Griffin was great defensively. 2 steals was great, but those 2 guys especially, it was their game, and I think we finally want one of those games again. We had a lot at the beginning of the season, but hopefully we're back. Anyways, let's get into Illinois sports. Baseball had an unfortunate weekend in Winston-Salem. The Illini went 1-2 in their only win coming in the first game of the 3 to Milwaukee. Starter Ty Weber pitched 6 innings and allowed just 1 run while striking out 6. The season continued today against Western Carolina. They also play Coastal Carolina and West Virginia this weekend.
Softball was in action as well. After starting the season 4-0, the team dropped 3 of their 4 games last weekend in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. The Illini will look to bounce back this weekend with games against Texas State, Tulsa, and Baylor before heading back to Champaign on Sunday.
In Texas, Illinois women's tennis team lost 4-1 to Baylor. Asuka Kawai and Mia Rabinowitz were the only doubles to get past their Bears opponents. The team travels to Eugene and is taking on the Oregon Ducks right now.
Head coach Jim Heffernan may have gotten his 100th win, but it's the Boilermakers who had the last laugh as they defeated the Illini at Huff Hall last Sunday. Senior Travis Piotrowski was first to put the Illini in the scoring column at 133 pounds. With the win, he completed his Big Ten dual matchups with an undefeated 9-0 while improving to 22-2 on the season. Redshirt senior Eric Baroni picked up his 3rd straight dual win at 157 after taking a quick 2-0 lead on his opponent Nate Limix, adding another 2 points for an escape and for riding time later in the match. Then, at 165, redshirt freshman Danny Bronigal followed up by dominating his opponent Tanner Webster, tallying 4 takedowns, 2 4-point near falls, and another 2-point near fall, finishing his duel with a whopping 19-2 score. And finally, the Illini were rounded out by one last win at 197 from Matt Robluski. After trailing 2-1 against Jared Floral, the sophomore shut down his opponent's attempts to escape, and then snuck in a late takedown to clinch Illinois' final win of the evening. However, as a team, the Illini fell just short to Purdue, losing the dual meet 18-14.
This one will sting for a long time just because I think we gave the dual meet away, and they out-hustled us, so it's our own fault.
The Illini will have a chance to snag one last win at home before they head to New Jersey for the Big Ten tournament. Jared Farmer, Illini Sports Night.
You'll have one more chance to catch the Illinois wrestling team in Champaign, and it's happening right now over at Huff Hall. Senior night kicked off at 4 against Fresno State, and admission is free, so get on over to Huff.
Speaking of Senior Day, ISN's own Blake Landa covered the women's basketball Senior Day last weekend.
The State Farm Center was filled with anticipation as well as friends and family for the 6 graduating seniors on the Fighting Illini women's basketball team as they prepared to face off against the Purdue Boilermakers for their 2020 senior night game. Seniors Brandy Beasley, Sierra Rice, Taylor Edwards, Petra Holashinska, Allie Andrews, and Courtney Jones were honored for their commitment and dedication to the Fighting Illini Nation. Each player was given a framed version of their jersey to commemorate their time in Champaign-Urbana. After all the fanfare of Senior Day, the Illini took the court against the Boilermakers. The Illini's record going into the game was set at 11-13 and 2-12 in the Big Ten, while Purdue was 16-10 and 7-7. The Illini kept the game competitive in the first half, trailing only by 5, heading into the locker room with a score of 30-25. Fan Jacob Rylick had his own thoughts about the graduating seniors and his hopes for the team heading into the end of the season.
It's weird. I mean, a lot of these players, have been a huge part of these rebuilding years for the Illini. You look at Allie Andrews in the post, you look at Brandy Beasley running the point. That's going to be huge gaps to fill come next year.
Purdue would never lose a lead again as the game progressed into the second half. The Boilermakers found a rhythm behind the three-point line and finished off the Illini with a score of 70-58. Seniors Petra Holoshinska and Courtney Jones scored in double figures, with Brandy Beasley barely trailing them with 9 points of her own. Coach Nancy Fay had her own opinions on how the Illini were defeated.
Their size inside, we were trying to minimize the rebounds. They were getting second shots.
It was senior night here at the State Farm Center for the women's Fighting Illini, and it wasn't a senior who scored the most points and was the most dominant. It was Petra Holoshinska. She's a junior, and she was the best that the Illini had.
The last home game of the season for the Illini will be on Wednesday, February 26th, against the Spartans of Michigan State. I'm Blake Landa, Illini Sports Night.
After a contentious match last week, NITHIN is back with another edition of Shot Clock, and
Look, last weekend Anthony Pasquale got robbed.
He was robbed.
He was robbed.
It was clear.
I mean, Alex had a good short.
Yeah. No disrespect to Alex, but Patrick, Anthony had one of the best shot clocks of all time.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Illini Sports Night's Shot Clock. I'm your host, Nathan DeHaan, joined here by Brendan Jones from WPGU's Illini Drive and our reigning champion, Alex Aguilera from the Daily Illini. Alex, welcome back.
Thanks, Nathan. It's good to be back.
Well, last time Alex won based on his knowledge of Illinois men's basketball, and that's where we're going to start on this edition of Sports Night. Alex, 5 games left for the Illinois basketball team before the Big Ten tournament. Who do you think specifically needs to step up for the Illini?
Well, it's got to be Georgi Bishanishvili. This guy has fallen off this year, unfortunately. Hasn't had the season that he had last year. When you look at his game against Penn State, only 2 points on, 1 for 6 shooting. 5 rebounds, respectable, but I think a guy his size, you got to look, for those 7 and 8 rebounds. And I think moving forward, that's a guy that really needs to step up because honestly, he hasn't really so far this season.
Sure. Brendan, what is your take on it?
I got to disagree with you. I think somebody whose step up would be even more impactful to this team is Trent Frazier. I mean, this year he's been a great ball handler, a great defender, but we've seen in the past how well he can score. If he is able to score like he used to and get his shots like he used to, this team could be really dangerous come March.
All right, you know what, Brendan, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to use my little rebuttal right here. I think with Trent Frazier, we've seen him do well this season. It may not be on the scoring sheet, but like you said, we've seen him do good defensively. So I think, with Trent Frazier, he's shown what he can do, outside of scoring. So I think, moving forward, Trent Frazier, he's done well. He's done well. I don't think, you can expect him to improve, scoring-wise. I'm not worried about that, but I think Georgia B is in a position where we haven't seen him before. And I think that's where he definitely needs to improve.
Alex with the first use of the rebuttal at Illini Sports Night's Shot Clock. And I'm going to give the point to Alex. I completely agree. I think Georgi Bishanishvili has been kind of a disappointment for Illinois basketball so far, and it would be good to see him step up. Well, Illinois men's basketball isn't the only sport in action. On the rest of this version of Shot Clock, we're going to be bouncing around between a lot of the different sports in action. Brendan, I'm going to start with you on this time, and we're going to go to Illinois tennis. They had a tough non-conference schedule, but going forward, how do you think that tough schedule is going to benefit them in the long run?
Well, I mean, of course, the record's not going to look great when you're looking back at this non-conference, but individually, it's going to help them so much. Alex Kovacevic last month was able to take down somebody who won the singles NCAA championship last year. Alex Brown was able to win against a top 5 opponent this year. Individually, this non-conference stretch is going to help them so much in their experience. On the record-wise, it might not look good, but I think it's going to benefit them as they go against the Big Ten.
Brendan sees brighter pastures in the future. Alex, what do you think?
Well, you know what? Shout out to the Alexes. I love them giving out a good name for Alex. But, I think as a whole, though, this helps the team, overall. I think, going up against, teams like Duke, like Florida, seeing those really good teams, I think just helps the team as a whole. Excuse me. So I'm sorry if I'm being repetitive, but I think as a whole, we see how individually good they are. Now we can see them do good as a team.
Sure. I'm going to go award this point to Brendan on this hand. I mean, you made some excellent points about the Illinois tennis team. Moving on to Illinois wrestling. They're done with their Big Ten conference schedule. They got one more match before the Big Ten championships. Alex, how confident should the Illinois wrestling team be going into those championships?
You know what? I think this team needs to be confident. I think they deserve it. This is a team that's won 5 matches in a row against teams like, Michigan, like Northwestern, like Rutgers. So I think, I believe they are ranked in the top 20, top 25. So going into the Big Ten championships, they got to be confident. This is, why you're there, why you're ranked. So I think, they have to be confident. There's no other way to say it.
Sure. Alex is full of confidence. Brendan, where are you at?
Being a top 20 ranked team who's taken down ranked teams, who's been competitive with teams like Penn State, yeah, you have to be confident, but you can't be cocky. You have to understand that this is still the best conference in the nation for wrestling. So, you really have to go into this Big Ten tournament with a level head, clear head, know your opponent, know everything that's going to happen, and, try your best to make a name for yourself as an Illinois wrestler.
Sure. I'm going to award this point to Brendan. I like the point that you make about the toughness of the conference because, I mean, if you look back at the previous champions in NCAA tournament wrestling, a lot of Big Ten names on there. Brendan, I'm going to start with you as we move back to basketball, this time on the women's side. Nancy Fay, head coach of the Illinois women's basketball team, has had a rough start to her tenure here at Illinois, 4-44 all-time in the Big Ten. Do you think it's time for Illinois to start maybe looking elsewhere for head coaching, or is there still more time for Nancy Fay to turn things around?
Nathan, I don't. I think that last semester I covered this team. The girls believe in Nancy Fay. She's a great coach. She's really intense. What it really comes down to is recruiting. She hasn't had the recruiting success that you really need, but she's also only been here for 3 seasons. So that recruiting base is building. I think that in the future, that recruiting base will be better, and this team will be way more competitive because on the court, they're playing more competitive. Their record might not show it, but they are playing more competitive.
Okay, Alex?
I would, as much as I love Nancy Fay, I think there isn't a sense of urgency to look right away, but I think you have to keep it in the back of your mind. I mean, 4-44 in 3 years, that isn't a very good look, and granted, recruiting can be hard and it takes time, but I feel like, next season is where we really need to start seeing some type of significant improvement. You got players like Kennedy Miles, like Jada Peoples, and I think, you have to roll with those players moving forward. But if not, then I think, you need to start looking elsewhere.
Understood.
I want to throw my rebuttal out there. I just want to say that those players that you just mentioned are freshmen. So even if they aren't, as impactful as they should be next year, they're only sophomores. Then they have their junior, their senior year, and then recruiting and transfers coming in. I don't know how, I feel like 1 year may be too short for Nancy Fay.
Brendan, even with your coverage of this team and even with your rebuttal, I have to agree that Illinois fan bases can tend to get stingy and want to see success soon. I mean, you look at how maybe the Illinois football fan base felt before this year, and success had to be shown, and it was shown on the field in that sport. And right here, I think it's true. I think that standard needs to be held above all sports. So would you look at that? 4 questions in, the score is tied 2-2. On our final deciding question, each of our contestants will have a full minute to expand if they so choose on our last topic. And Alex, I'm going to start with you. We're going to go to gymnastics on this one. The Big Ten sometimes struggles when it comes to playing the other conferences or facing the other conferences in match play, Big 12s, the SECs, and whatnot. And sometimes the athletes feel that it's sort of on the Big Ten conference to maybe work towards a higher level of competition, higher level of talent, and more exposure for the gymnasts. So how do you think, if you're the Big Ten conference or if you make the decisions here, do you up that level of competition and get that higher level of exposure?
I think, that's where it's at. You need to, these Big Ten teams need to start playing better competition. And I think even sooner, you look at basketball where you have the Big Ten ACC tournament right off the bat to start off the season. I think if you can implement something like that for women's gymnastics, that just helps not only, Illinois, but just the Big Ten conference as a whole. And I think from there, maybe you can start looking at TV deals where you can bring in more money into gymnastics, not even just women's gymnastics, but also men's gymnastics. So I think, just getting that exposure is the first thing.
Yep. Brendan, going to you.
Yeah, this is definitely an issue that starts at the top with the Big Ten Conference itself. You have to put the resources in this sport. Big Ten basketball is great. Big Ten football is great. Big Ten academics are great. You have to give the resources to the sport that it needs to continue to be on par with the rest of the conferences. You know, people want to go to Big Ten schools, especially if they're from the Midwest. So you really have to look at what you're contributing, you know, to gymnastics to make it a premier sport in this nation from this conference. And yeah, I think that starts at the top with the resources that, you know, they give the sport.
All right. Well, on my final point, I'm going to have to award it here to Alex. I love the idea of interconference play. I mean, you do think about the Big Ten ACC Challenge and some of the other things that other conferences do to face off against other conferences. And yeah, I mean, build that exposure and also, you know, gives a little bit of that conference edge, see who's better. Speaking of edges, congratulations. You're looking like a tough opponent right now.
Ooh, let's go. Hey, but you know what? You know, I got to give props to my man, Brendan. He definitely he gave me a little scare a little bit. I got to admit.
Well, the time has run out on this edition of Shot Clock. Congratulations to our reigning champion, Alex Aguilera, 2-0 now going forward. For more on the women's gymnastics team, our very own Mariah Guzman sat down with Illini gymnast Karen Howell on this week's Illinois Story. Take a look.
You put on a show for everybody, you make it look good, but it's also very physically demanding. What part of that do you feel you enjoy the most?
I think that gymnastics is very different from other sports, whereas we do have to put all the makeup on, we do have to put our nice little bow on, and we're putting on a show. It is what we're doing. Of course, like the scores matter and the gymnastics matters, and when you go to practice, it's not like, we're not all full makeup. Like, we probably look like monsters. Like, we're working so hard, we're sweating, but when it comes time to compete, we're putting on a show, we're smiling, and I think that that's the best part is you work so hard in practice, and then when it comes time for competition, everything just happens.
So when did gymnastics start for you?
So I didn't start gymnastics until I was 8, which is super late. Most people start when they're 2 or 3 in like little toddler classes. And I did softball, I played golf, I did a lot of other sports. I tried basketball, I'm really short, so that was not gonna work. But I tried a lot of other sports, and my grandma actually saw me climbing all over everything, and she was like, I think you need to put her in gymnastics, she's going all over everything, and she's gonna get hurt if she doesn't learn how to control this. So my mom signed me up for one of those recreation classes where it's just tumbling on the tumble track. And they were like, she needs to not be on here, she needs to go on a team, she needs to she's really good and she has a lot of talent. So then I started gymnastics when I was 8, so.
Did you have a goal in mind, or were you just going with the flow of everything?
When I was really little, obviously I wanted to go to the Olympics. That's every little kid's dream. And you see all the other girls doing it, and there was a gymnast from Michigan, her name was Jordan Weber, and she went to the Olympics, and I was like, well, if she can do it, I'm from Michigan too, I can do it. I think that was super cool, someone I could look up to. And then as I got older, I realized that the girls that do go to the Olympics, they're homeschooled, they're training 8 hours a day, and I just wasn't doing that, and I didn't have any interest in doing that. But then I learned that I could do college gymnastics, which was awesome, and I could continue doing that for another 4 years, and I loved gymnastics, I loved the sport. So having that opportunity to do that and just seeing that as a goal was awesome. I just loved being on campus here. I loved the family aspect of the team, and everything just felt super right. I don't know how else to explain it, just
in your heart.
Yes, I was like, this is where I want to be.
Is there something you want to accomplish before you graduate? A record you want to beat? Anything like that?
Yeah, so this is super silly. I just did it this weekend though. I wanted to get one event title on every event, and so I had it on everything except for beam, and I was like, I'm pretty good at beam, how come I haven't done this? And I've gone 9-9 before. I was but it's just, it's what happens at the meet, so someone else outscored me. And I actually got 2 beam titles this weekend, so I was like, that's pretty cool. I went in having none, and I came out with 2. Right. So now I have 1 event title on every event, at least 1.
Do you think that you would be the same person that you are now if it wasn't for gymnastics?
Probably not. I just think that gymnastics has really shaped me and helped me grow into who I am. There's a lot of life lessons that come out of the sport. There's a lot of growing that happened even once I got to college. I grew a lot with just how I competed and how I held, if I had a bad meet, did I hold that over myself too long? I think that I would not. I take disappointment a lot better. I take excitement a lot better. I'm very humble with my successes now. I think that gymnastics has definitely helped shape me into who I am today. Like I can leave the sport and be like, okay, yeah, you did a good job.
What struck out to you the most from your interview with Karen?
For me, what I got from her was that her passion for gymnastics was really sculpted because of her and not because of anybody else. She started the sport, yes, because of her grandma, but as her career progressed, her family and her mom specifically made it very evident that if she wanted to stop, she could, and that she shouldn't feel pressured to do the sport because of anybody else, and she should do it because she loves it and not because she feels like she has to. And I think that's really important for athletes to have and to know, and it makes the sport more enjoyable for them.
And obviously, another big opportunity for the gymnastics team with the Big Five coming up here in Toledo.
Yeah, so she mentioned how it's really important for them. It gives them a lot of exposure, and they go against different teams. And most of the time, the Big Ten doesn't really work like that. So it's just really important for them to do well this weekend. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they do and how she performs.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mariah. We're going to head back over to Patrick Catazone for our final thoughts.
Doug KRAMER wins the NFF Mental Toughness Award for being rated as the third best center in Power 5.
Former Illinois assistant baseball coach Kyle Hudson has been hired by the Cleveland Indians. Hudson coached 2 seasons in Champaign.
Illinois swim and dive team competes in the Big Ten Championship this weekend. The final event are Saturday.
And finally, the men's golf team teed off in Hawaii this week to start their spring leg of the season. It's a 54-hole tournament that ends on Saturday.
That's all we have for you on this edition of Illini Sports Night. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you next week.